Welcome into another video. This time we're going over the third round targets of the NFL draft. I'm trying to pick out some targets for you guys that can best help your fantasy football team and help you win a championship. Let's dive right on in here to the first guy. We're talking about Malachi Corley, who was taken by the Jets. They're trying to fill up Aaron Rodgers with some weapons, and I think Malachi Corley is one of those guys that can come in and be one of those yak type of guys. He's really been compared to somebody like a Deebo Samuel, like a big body type of guy who likes to call himself the yak king, right? So somebody who can catch the football and make something happen, whether it's a juke here, a juke there, make somebody miss and take it to the house. Let's see what he was able to do last season with Western Kentucky. We see that Malachi Corley was a 5'11", 210-pound wide receiver, 79 receptions, 989 yards receiving, and 11 touchdowns on top of that. And like I said, I think Aaron Rodgers has something to prove. He's going to prove that he belongs to be out there. His season was cut very, very short, as we know last season. He's going to come out here and try to make a championship contender out of the Jets. They've got the tools to do it. Malachi Corley could be one of those guys that kind of takes it into that slot role, catches some things underneath, and makes some things happen for Aaron Rodgers to where he doesn't have to use all of his arm strength all the time, throw it to Garrett Wilson. He can now do some dink and dunks over there to Malachi Corley. Let's look at the depth chart right now and see what the Jets are working with. We see Aaron Rodgers definitely at that quarterback position. Breece Hall as the #1 running back. They did draft Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis as well. Garrett Wilson, #1 wide receiver. They got Mike Williams over there from the Chargers. Xavier Gibson did really, really good. And I have Malachi Corley slotting there as the 4th wide receiver with Tyler Conklin there at that tight end position. So I think that they're doing a good job trying to build around Aaron Rodgers, something the Packers really didn't do very much. I think the Jets are actually trying to do that for Aaron Rodgers and show them, hey, look, I know you're in your window right now. You only have a couple years left to play. And I think that Aaron Rodgers definitely has something in Malachi Corley that could be fantasy relevant. If you're looking for somebody to be either a wide receiver 3 or maybe even a flex position for you, Malachi Corley could be a good option. Let's go into the next guy here. We're talking about for the Cardinals. They ended up drafting Trey Benson, that running back out of Florida State. Now we know James Conner, he probably only has a couple years left in him as well. Conner's done very well in this offense, and when they already got somebody like a Marvin Harrison Jr. on the offense, they've already got Kyler Murray, they already got they got some tight ends like Trey McBride and things like that in this offense. I think adding somebody like a Trey Benson could be great. Let's look at what he did last season for Florida State. Look at Trey Benson. He was a 6'1", 220-pound running back, 905 rushing yards, 14 touchdowns alongside 227 yards receiving and a touchdown on top of that. Trey Benson, I don't believe him to be the starter this season, but I think that even by next season, they're able to get out of the contract with James Conner, and I think you can start to see Trey Benson build a little bit of momentum. He could be fantasy relevant towards the end of the season, but I wouldn't really want to draft him in redraft leagues. He's only, as of right now, a dynasty running back for me. But I think by next year or the year after that, you're looking at a starting running back in Trey Benson for a nice Cardinals team that could be kind of high-powered if Kyler Murray is the one that's leading the charge, right? So let's just look at the depth chart here and see what we're talking about here. Kyler Murray, like I said, at the quarterback position, James Conner, Trey Benson. We already talked about Marvin Harrison Jr. with Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch on the field, and Trey McBride at the tight end position. They're building up this offense right now. I think that the defense needs to come out a little bit, but they're starting to get some weapons on the offense. Trey Benson could be a big part of that, especially if you're looking for like a bell cow type of back. I think Trey Benson could end up being a bell cow for this team. Let's look at the next team. We're talking about the Bengals with the T. Higgins issues. They went ahead and got their receiver in Jermaine Burton, the wide receiver out of Alabama. Now we don't know what's going to happen with T. Higgins. I think by next season he is gone. He may even be traded mid-season in sayonara. Tyler Boyd is no longer with there as the 3rd wide receiver. You know, Jermaine Burton, what they give him is a deep down the field burner who could take the top off the defense. It's probably going to open up a lot more things for Jamar Chase. I like that. Let's just look at what he was able to do at Alabama. We see Jermaine Burton, 6 foot, 194 pound wide receiver, 39 receptions, 798 yards, and 8 touchdowns on top of that. Like I said, he's a deep field type of guy. Down the field, and I think Joe Burrow can get him the football. I think he's going to give you more of a Gabe Davis type of feel, right, in fantasy football. There's going to be some days where he can almost win you a week. He might have 3 receptions for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, and there's going to be some weeks he's just absolutely absent, especially in this first week, in his first year, because you got Jamar Chase there and T. Higgins there. There's not going to be a lot of eating room for Jermaine Burton, but slowly but surely by next year, you should start to see Burton give you those #2 wide receiver role, and he's going to have those fluctuations. In my opinion, he's going to have good games, going to have bad games. Jamar Chase is the bona fide #1 alpha dog in this offense. He's going to get all the targets first, and then all the supplements, the deep and the deep, long 40-50 yard bombs. You'll see Jermaine Burton catch some of those. Let's look at the depth chart real quick as of right now. We see the depth chart. Joe Burrow is going to be the quarterback there. Obviously, Zach Moss comes over, the bona fide #1 running back. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Trent Irwin, Iosaves, or however you say that guy's name, he's a 4th. I got Jermaine Burton right now in the 5th, but I'm going to easily see this guy go up to the 3rd before the 3rd game of the season. He should easily be the #3 wide receiver. And a tight end that I like, Mike Gesicki. I think he's finally getting the opportunity to have a decent quarterback. I think Mike Gesicki could be a nice fantasy value as well. But Trey Burton overall, again, he's more of a dynasty pick for me than a redraft league this year. But in the dynasty, if you ever get Jermaine Burton, let him sit on your bench for a couple years. I think he could be fantasy relevant for you sooner rather than later. Let's talk about the next guy here. We're talking about the Rams, and they ended up going to get another running back in Blake Corum. Now, Kyren Williams, big news flash right here. Everybody was all about Kyren Williams being the bell cow, being rocking and rolling, but getting a talent like Blake Corum into this offense could be scary for Kyren Williams. Let's look at what Blake Corum was able to do over there at the University of Michigan. Blake Corum, a small guy, right? 5'8", 210-pound running back, 1,245 rushing yards, 27 touchdowns with 117 receiving yards and a touchdown on top of that. Blake Corum, I'm going to tell you guys, probably one of the better running backs I have ever seen scouting out of college football. The vision this guy can, and the cutback ability that he displays week in and week out on every single play, the effort that he gives you. I really like Blake Corum. That's going to put him on the football field and cut into some of Kyren Williams' workload. Yes, I do believe Kyren Williams will be the main running back for this offense, but I think Blake Corum is going to have a minor role for himself that's just going to cut into a lot of Kyren Williams' work. I think both Kyren Williams and Blake Corum, they're going to be kind of a headache for your team. I would probably stay away from both of the guys at this point. Let's go to the depth chart, see what I'm talking about here. Matthew Stafford definitely at that quarterback position. Kyren Williams, Blake Corum right there as the 1 and 2 tap right there for the running back position. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Demarcus Robinson, and Tyler Higbee on top of that. So it's one of those things you want to think about, right? It's, do you want to give yourself a headache, even though it's a running back that I'm super, super high on? Me, myself, I would just stay away from him in both Dynasty and Redraft League. Too much of a headache to find out. Kyren Williams is obviously the bona fide guy, but I think you're going to see Blake Corum take over some of the role, maybe even the goal line touches for this guy. I just say stay away from these guys. Not somebody I would target whatsoever. Next guy I'm going to talk about here is from the Steelers. They needed somebody to take over for Deontay Johnson. They needed getting somebody in Roman Wilson, the wide receiver out of Michigan. Roman Wilson's another guy that I really, really like. I think his route running is pretty good. His hands are definitely a secured guy. If you need a first down, throw it to Roman Wilson. He's probably going to come down with the football. I like this opportunity. I still think it doesn't hurt George Pickens whatsoever. I think he is definitely the alpha dog in this offense, but Roman Wilson's going to get some of his, right? So especially now with the competent quarterback play, whether it be Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, not sure who's going to be the main quarterback. Probably Russell Wilson to start at the very beginning, but we'll have to see what happens. Let's just see what Roman Wilson was able to do last season with the Michigan Wolverines. So Roman Wilson, 6 foot, 192-pound wide receiver, 48 receptions, 789 receiving yards, and 12 touchdowns on top of that. Again, Roman Wilson should be fantasy relevant. He's going to be on the football field quite a bit, and they're going to throw the football. Najee Harris, are they going to start taking a step back from him? Maybe focus more on Jaylen Warren and then throw the football more? Who knows what's happening? If they do, Roman Wilson should be nice and fantasy relevant. Maybe even, like I said, a wide receiver 3, flex type of role, kind of like Malachi Corey, like we were talking about earlier. I think that could definitely be a possibility. Let's look at the depth chart. Let's see what we're talking about here. Looking at the quarterback position, we got Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, both of those guys. Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren at the running back position. I think George Pickens, Van Jefferson, probably the number 2 wide receiver here, and Roman Wilson playing a lot in that slot, and then Pat Freiermuth at the tight end position. If you're looking for a late round flyer, Roman Wilson probably could be a good opportunity for you. Roman Wilson, somebody that can easily take over the number 2 target ability from Van Jefferson, right? He has the talent to do so, and I believe he will do so by the end of the season. I would say if you have a late round flyer, go ahead and grab Roman Wilson. Next guy we're talking about here is going to be somebody from the Packers. They needed another running back, another youth movement coming in there. We're talking about Marshawn Lloyd, the running back out of USC. He's going in here and backing up Josh Jacobs, another running back they got in free agency. Marshawn Lloyd gives a little bit of a difference of opinion there, so he can make a little bit of everything happen, right? I like his running back style. I like the way he runs the football. Let's look at what he did last year at USC. Marshawn Lloyd, 5'9", 210-pound running back, 820 rushing yards with 9 touchdowns. along with 232 receiving yards on top of that. He can do a little bit of everything, right? And we don't know. We could be seeing just a one-year rental from Josh Jacobs. If Josh Jacobs doesn't wow anybody with his running ability, look for Marshawn Lloyd to really take over this backfield. I wouldn't bat an eye if I saw him do that. Let's just look at the depth chart real quick and see what they're working with. Jordan Love definitely at that quarterback position. Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd, like I was talking about earlier. Wide receivers, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed. We don't really know who the true bona fide number 1 wide receiver is. They assume it's going to be Christian Watson, but who knows? I guess we'll see what happens. And then Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, the 2 tight ends that I really do like in this offense. I think both of them can be fantasy valuable as well. Marshawn Lloyd, somebody, if you want to grab, he's more of a dynasty pick for me, not definitely in redraft league. Josh Jacobs is going to dominate the touches in this backfield this season. It's not going to be Marshawn Lloyd, but somebody you want to look for down the line. He could be somebody you could add to your team. Now, the last guy we're going to go over today is going to be the Buccaneers' new wide receiver, Jalen McMillan, that wide receiver out of Washington. He was one of those guys I kind of liked the most out of all the wide receivers between Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, and Jalen McMillan. McMillan ran a lot more out of the slot, but I liked his route running ability a lot more than the other 2 guys. His catching ability, his spectacular playability, he can break it to the house. I just like what he provides for this offense. More kind of maybe taking over for a Chris Godwin role sooner rather than later. Let's just look at what he was able to do last season with the Washington Huskies. So 6'1" wide receiver and 192 pounds, 45 receptions, 559 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He was able to step up, right? If someone was missing the game, whether it's Jalen Polk, whether it's Rome Odunze, if they missed any time, McMillan stepped in and was able to fill for these guys. Now, overall, with his time at Wisconsin, with Washington, he was injury prone, right? He was injured quite a bit. He missed quite a few games, but as somebody, when he was on the field, he's shown that he can play some football. I think the Buccaneers got themselves a steal in this draft. Let's look at the depth chart real quick with McMillan here on the field. We're looking at Baker Mayfield at that quarterback position, Rashad White, Bucky Irving, a running back that they got in the draft as well. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, definitely the 1 and the 2. And then Jalen McMillan there. You're going to see more out of the slot as well. And then Cade Otton at the tight end position. I do like this position for Jalen McMillan. I think Baker Mayfield got himself another tool to throw to. Somebody you can look at as a late round flyer. A lot of people may not even be looking at this guy. Somebody you can take, and by mid-season, you could be having yourself a nice flex wide receiver for your team. But guys, that's all we have here for this video. Make sure, let me know down in the comments below, out of this round, who do you guys like the most? Make sure you hit a like button and make sure you're subscribing to the channel, as most of you guys watching this video right now are not subscribed, and it really would help out the channel. Guys, I can't wait to see you guys on the next video. We'll see you guys next time.